As a French person, I feel Paris is one of the most romanticized cities in the world, but also one of the most hated. And I think that whether you find Paris overrated or not will totally depend on your expectations and on how prepared you are. So on one side we have people who come with really high expectations. You know, Paris is called the city of love. People come on their honeymoons. They come to propose to their partners in front of the Eiffel Tower. They want all the romantic and glamorous vibes Paris has to offer. And this very positive image is partially linked to how the movie industry portrays France and Paris, and partially linked to how Instagrammable the city is. But the most important factor is that tourism is a 19 billion euro industry, and Paris is constantly ranked among the most powerful tourist destinations in the world, which means that more money is spent on tourism in Paris than in any city in the world. So even though France doesn't rely on tourism, tourism is a key industry in France, and it has been for a long time. And you can tell that the French travel industry is hard at work to sell you on a particular image of France. A good example of that is Air France, which is France's flagship airline. I personally love flying Air France from the US because I already feel at home, and also they serve complimentary champagne even if you fly economy. So if you've taken Air France at some point over the past few years, you've seen this safety video with those very good-looking stereotypical French ladies that obviously wear stripes. And you know, I'm not saying that the French lifestyle stereotype is entirely wrong. I myself love to wear stripes, and I also have a cabinet full of wine. But I'm just saying that it's something that can really set you up for disappointment if you don't do your research and you're not prepared for the realities of visiting Paris, which I'll tell you in the next section. So I personally feel that's one of the reasons why Paris receives so much hate compared to other major cities like New York or London, where I've also lived. And you know, sometimes when I say I live in Paris, I meet people who really want to tell me how much they hate Paris and how bad they think it is. So I just really want to explore why Paris makes people so mad compared to, let's say, New York City, where you expect that there will be piles and piles of trash on the ground, rats everywhere, and that your neighborhood bagel guy will yell at you when they give you your order. And I personally feel all of this is part of the charm of New York. Okay, here are a few negative stereotypes of Paris that always come up, even in the comments of my videos. So it's expensive, it's crowded, it's dirty, it's dangerous, and also we are not very nice. And the truth is, I can't really argue with any of these because we're in a big city after all, and it's not an easy or friendly place to live in. So if you want to be in a place that's cute, where people are friendly, that's safe, you should go to a smaller French city like Toulouse, where I come from. So it seems that every person has their own expectation of what Paris will be like. Some are good, some are bad, and some are actually true. And the reality is actually even more nuanced. So let's investigate if Paris is really so bad and if you should plan to propose at the Bean in Chicago instead of the Eiffel Tower. So here's my personal opinion as a French person who has lived in the US and has been with an American for 7 years. That's you. So yes, Paris is not a hidden gem at all. It is not underrated as a whole. It's often the first destination people go to when traveling abroad. So yes, there's going to be a lot of people visiting Paris. But let me give you a bit of advice. I think if you hate Paris, you're maybe going to the wrong places for you. 7 million people visit the Eiffel Tower each year. So obviously it's not gonna be very romantic. And you know, I seriously don't know what you're expecting. I know a girl who is a photographer who actually takes those engagement pictures near the Eiffel Tower, and she told me that people have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be there before there's anyone visiting, because otherwise there's just so many people that you just can't propose at the Eiffel Tower. And this point is also valid for all the places you see on Instagram, like a lot of people go to this street or this one as well, or you've seen this picture so many times. All of these people who take these pictures, they just wake up super early because you just can't do that during the day. There's just way too many people. However, there's a lot of places in Paris that are super underrated. And these are usually the local places that you can't really find online, where you have to do a bit more research to actually find them. Like for example, the 20th arrondissement. No one goes there. Maybe because it's a bit further away, but there's so many cool things over there. And before I tell you about everything that's actually underrated in Paris, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, NordVPN. So since I got my Instagram account hacked a few years ago by someone who stole my online identity and didn't even take the time to Photoshop a proper picture of me. I've been taking my online safety more seriously, and I've been using a VPN to protect my data online. Using NordVPN is a great way to keep your online identity safe when you're traveling, and also access content that's not available in your country. I personally love using a VPN to find country-specific deals on travel, especially on flights. So different countries often have different flight prices, depending on many things like how wealthy the country is, special holidays, or how popular a certain destination is within a country. NordVPN also has one of the best connection speeds of the market, so it doesn't slow down your browsing. Plus, there's no risk in trying it out since they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So get started with NordVPN and get 4 months extra on a 2-year plan by clicking the link in the description below. Then I want to speak about the other thing that seems to be ruining the fun in Paris for everyone. It's Parisians. I've had so many people tell me Paris is just so nice, I just wish the Parisians were not there. And I'm like, that's like kind of not nice, you know, I take it personally, but it's kind of also true. And I want to unpack the Parisian stereotype. You know, I personally get a very different reaction from French people depending on my answer to the question, where are you from? So if I tell them I live in Paris, people seem to be a bit disappointed. But when I say, but I'm from Toulouse, then I can see people's faces lighting up and just overall looking happier. And I feel it's almost like a national sport in France to hate on Parisians. I remember growing up in the south of France, a lot of people would honk when they will see a car that had the plaque from Paris. So that's a thing people hate on Parisians have been for a very, very long time. So you're not special for hating Parisians. Everyone does it. But when I was doing some research for this video, I actually found something really cool because I was thinking, who is a Parisian? Where actually I found that 78% of Parisians are actually not born in Paris. The Parisian everyone has in mind doesn't exist. And I personally do not know that person. Maybe we're all a tiny bit like that. So I feel that's really something you need to abandon when you come to France and especially to Paris, because the stereotypes we see on the French culture are mostly based on that fictional image of a Parisian. Paris is a very, very diverse place. There's people from all over the world, and even people who seem French are maybe not 100% French. Take me, for example. I'm actually both French and Spanish because my dad is from Spain. And I feel people actually overlook how diverse France is. Like, if you take a walk in my neighborhood, it does look like the typical French neighborhood that looks almost like a little old-school village. But when you pay attention, you can actually hear a lot of different languages being spoken. Anyone can be a Parisian and live in France. And there's so many cool and unique things to Paris that are a bit like that as well, that you can't really maybe see when you're just looking on the surface, but if you're digging a bit deeper, then you'll find these very underrated things to do that are unique to Paris. And I feel you could really spend a lifetime exploring Paris and discovering all of these different options. So I think that if you have the right expectations and you're willing to do a bit of research, you'll find that there's so many things that are underrated in Paris. And it's almost like there's two cities and you discover the underrated one when you decide you've actually had enough of visiting the main highlights like the Eiffel Tower or the Louvre and you're ready to actually explore. So when my boyfriend Bobby visited Paris for the first time, a long time ago, he actually only stayed 2 days and did just that. He visited all the highlights, didn't experience anything else, and then just left. So he didn't really think much of Paris and didn't really have the best time until he came back for a second time. And it was around when we met and I actually showed him all my personal favorites as a French person, which are the things I usually talk about on this channel. And you know, I think it's safe to say that he had a good experience because we're still together 7 years later and now live in Paris after having lived in many countries in the world. And I feel this is such a different approach to travel, and I know I'll personally hate Paris as well if I was forced to only see the highlights. And there's so many cool things that are unique to Paris that are not in the highlights. And if you enjoy these like me, I think you'll find Paris really cool as well. Paris is really the city of culture. It's really old, there's so much to visit, so many exhibitions, shows, galleries, and since the city is really old, there's a lot of history and architecture, and I personally love walking around and I always discover something something new. Obviously, there is the food. If you like good products, if you're a bit adventurous, you'll love French food. There's so many different options in Paris, but there's also food from all over the world because remember, we're a major city with a lot of diverse cultures. And then the thing I find the most underrated is the overall energy of the city. If you like New York, for example, you know how when you go to New York, there's like this really cool dynamic energy that makes you want to do a lot of things like work really hard to achieve your dreams. Well, in Paris, it's totally different. There's what I feel is a true enjoyment of life that makes the city so unique. For example, you're just chilling in a park and people watching, eating a delicious meal with friends for hours on end, or just taking a leisurely walk around the city. I feel there's this special energy of taking the time to enjoy the stuff you actually like doing. And for me, that's what makes the city so unique, and it's one of the many reasons why I really enjoy living in Paris and why it's not overrated at all for me. And there's just so much to do and explore in Paris, especially if you have the right expectations about what it's like to live in a big city and you try to travel a bit differently. And if you want to see how to do that, you should watch these videos next. I'll see you there.